In the sleepy town of Willow Creek, the evenings usually unfolded under a blanket of stars, the peace only disturbed by the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustle of wind through the leaves. The town was a relic of simpler times, with Main Street lined by a handful of shops that still closed at dusk and where everyone knew each other's names. Bob, a local farmer known for his eccentric ideas and even more peculiar inventions, was one of the town's most colorful characters. On this particular evening, a unique celestial event was about to disrupt the tranquility of Willow Creek. As twilight deepened into night, residents gathered at the annual Harvest Festival on the outskirts of town. Lanterns hung from strings crisscrossed above the fairgrounds, casting a warm glow over families enjoying games and treats. Laughter and music filled the air, creating a festive atmosphere that promised to last well into the night. Unbeknownst to the revelers high above their heads, a strange new light pierced the night sky. It was brighter than the rest and moved with unnatural speed against the backdrop of constellations. At first it was mistaken for a shooting star, and several children pointed upwards, making hasty wishes. However, the light slowed, hovered, and then began to descend subtly towards the outskirts where the farms lay quiet and dark. Bob, missing from the festival's mirth, was busy in his barn, the site of his countless experiments and failed projects. The barn was cluttered with all manner of tools and strange devices, walls adorned with diagrams and scribbled equations. His latest project, a peculiar-looking contraption made from scrap metal and salvaged parts of old machinery, stood in the center, a testament to his relentless ambition to create something revolutionary. As Bob adjusted a dial on the machine, the barn was suddenly filled with a bright light seeping through the cracks of the old wooden walls. Confused and a tad irritated by the interruption, he stepped outside, expecting to confront a neighbor or perhaps a stray reveler from the festival. Instead, he found himself bathed in a brilliant blue light emanating from above. Squinting, he looked up to see a disc-shaped object hovering silently in the sky, its underside pulsating with lights that didn't belong to any aircraft he knew. The serenity of the night was shattered in an instant. The light intensified, encircling Bob in a luminescent column that seemed to hum with energy. Paralyzed by a mix of awe and fear, Bob had just enough time to let out a bemused chuckle before the beam lifted him off his feet, pulling him upwards towards the mysterious craft. As the barn and the fields around it shrank away beneath him, Bob's mind raced with 1,000 questions. Yet in the depths of his eccentric heart, where curiosity reigned supreme over fear, Bob felt an exhilarating thrill. This was, after all, the ultimate disruption to an otherwise ordinary night, and for an inventor who thrived on the unexpected, it was the beginning of what could only be described as a grand adventure. Bob's ascent into the unknown was swift, the beam of light transporting him with a strange gentleness despite its startling force. He could barely gather his thoughts, his mind a whirl of confusion and curiosity, before he was gently deposited inside the alien craft. The transition was seamless, from the cool night air of Earth to the sterile, humming environment of the spaceship. As his eyes adjusted to the softer lighting inside, shapes and forms began to take more definite outlines around him. The interior of the spacecraft was unlike anything Bob had ever seen or imagined, even in his wildest inventions. It was sleek and seamless, with walls that seemed to be made of a material that was at once metallic and alive, pulsating with a soft glow. The room he was in was sparse, equipped only with what looked like a control panel and several large screens displaying star charts and symbols in an unrecognizable script. Bob's captors soon made their appearance. They were remarkably humanoid but distinctly alien in their features, large opalescent eyes that seemed to reflect the starlight, skin that shimmered with a subtle iridescence, and limbs that were elongated and graceful. They wore simple garments that appeared to be made of some light, shimmering fabric. The two aliens approached him cautiously, their movements fluid and almost choreographed. "Welcome, Earthling Bob," said the taller of the two in a voice that resonated directly in Bob's mind rather than his ears, a telepathic communication that was disorienting at first. Bob, still recovering from the shock of his sudden journey, nodded dumbly. "I'm Z and this is Zaw," the entity continued, gesturing to its companion. "We mean you no harm. We are explorers, much like yourself, curious about the universe and its many inhabitants." Bob, finding his voice, managed a wry smile. "Well, you sure know how to make an entrance," he replied, his innate confidence and curiosity beginning to override his initial shock. "Might I ask where we're headed, or is this going to be a surprise tour?" Z chuckled, a sound that seemed to tinkle like wind chimes in Bob's mind. "We are explorers, and sometimes we indulge in what you might call practical jokes. You are part of a little adventure we planned." "An adventure, huh?" Bob said, raising an eyebrow. "And if I had plans tonight, what then?" Zaw, who had remained silent until now, joined the conversation. "Your participation will be greatly appreciated, and we assure you it will be rewarding. We are keen to learn from you as much as you might learn from us." Despite the situation's absurdity, Bob felt a surge of excitement. He had always craved adventure, and though his encounters were typically grounded on Earth with his contraptions and experiments, the prospect of an interstellar escapade sparked his imagination. "All right then, Z and Zaw, lead the way," Bob declared, his usual playful bravado returning. "Let's see what this universe has to offer." As the aliens guided him through the corridors of their ship, Bob looked around with an inventor's keen eye, noting every detail, every alien technology that he might somehow understand or replicate. Little did he know, his curiosity and ingenuity would soon turn what was meant to be a simple alien prank into an unforgettable cosmic journey that would challenge the very intentions of his captors. The corridors of the alien spacecraft were a maze of light and shadow, each turn revealing more of the ship's advanced and mysterious technology. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and panels of shimmering light displayed data in an undecipherable alien script. Bob's mind raced with questions about each piece of technology he passed, his curiosity piqued by the endless possibilities they suggested. Z and Zaw led Bob into a room that looked like a cross between a laboratory and a museum. The room was lined with artifacts from countless worlds, each displayed with care and accompanied by holographic labels in the swirling, intricate script of the aliens. Bob's eyes widened in wonder as he passed items that defied physics as he knew them, floating crystals that hummed with energy, miniature stars contained within transparent orbs, and devices that appeared to manipulate time and space. "This is our collection room," Z explained, noticing Bob's interest. "We gather interesting artifacts from the planets we visit. It's part of our mission to understand the diversity of the universe." Bob was particularly drawn to a device that resembled a clock, its hands moving backward. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the contraption. "That," Zaw responded, "is a time reverser from the planet Kronos. It can rewind time by a few seconds. Quite a fascinating study in temporal mechanics." Bob chuckled. "Wish I had one of these when I made mistakes on my projects back home." As they moved through the collection, Bob asked countless questions, some of which Z and Zaw could answer, and others which seemed to stump even them. It was clear to the aliens that Bob was not just another primitive creature to be amused by their advanced technology. He was an inventor with a deep understanding of mechanical and physical laws, even if he was unfamiliar with alien technologies. Their next stop was the control center, a vast room with a panoramic view of the cosmos beyond. Star maps and navigation charts floated holographically in the center of the room, and more alien script ran along monitors that lined the walls. The heart of the spaceship hummed with a power that felt almost alive. "Here is where we control the ship," Z said, gesturing towards a console. "Our technology is based on quantum entanglement and dark energy manipulation. It allows us to traverse great distances in the blink of an eye." Bob approached the console, his hands itching to touch the controls, to understand how they worked. "And how do you ensure you don't end up in the middle of a star or something equally unpleasant?" Zaw smiled. "Our navigation systems are calibrated to detect and avoid all known cosmic hazards. We have mapped most of the galaxy's safe routes." Just then, the ship jolted slightly, causing Bob to stumble. Alarms blared briefly, and the room flashed with red lights. Z quickly tapped some commands into the console, and the ship steadied. "Speaking of cosmic hazards," Zaw said with a wry grin, "we just avoided a small meteoroid field." Bob, regaining his balance, laughed. "Good to know your reflexes are as sharp as your tech." As the tour continued, it became clear to Z and Zaw that Bob was not just adapting but thriving. His enthusiasm and adaptability impressed them, but also sowed seeds of doubt about their initial plan to simply use him as part of a cosmic joke. They glanced at each other, a silent communication passing between them that perhaps they had underestimated their human guest. As the ship sped through the cosmos, heading towards their next intended prank, both Z and Zaw began to wonder if the joke was on them after all. After several hours of exploring the spacecraft and bombarding his host with a myriad of questions, Bob was starting to feel the gravity of his situation, literally and figuratively. The wonder of being aboard an alien spacecraft hadn't worn off, but the reality of being whisked away from Earth without consent was beginning to sink in. Z and Zaw, sensing his shifting mood, decided it was time to explain their intentions more fully. They guided Bob into what appeared to be a lounge area, where the seating molded itself to the occupant's body shape, providing an uncanny level of comfort. The room was softly lit, the lights mimicking the cycle of natural sunlight, creating a soothing ambiance. "We hope you have found the tour of our ship enlightening," Z began, choosing their words carefully. "We need to discuss why you're here." Bob, sitting comfortably but with a stern look, replied, "Yes, I think it's about time for that." Zaw took over the explanation. "We are part of an interstellar network that engages in cultural exchanges. Though admittedly some of our methods are unconventional. Our initial plan was to involve you in a harmless prank intended for another alien species. They are known for their serious demeanor, and we thought introducing a human into the equation would add a humorous disruption." Bob raised an eyebrow. "So, I'm to be a jester in your cosmic court? Doesn't sound like something I'd sign up for willingly." Seeing Bob's displeasure, Z quickly interjected, "We realize now that our approach may have been insensitive. We value consent and mutual understanding, and it's clear we've made a mistake. We want to make it right." Bob thought for a moment, his mind racing through possibilities. He then proposed, "All right, how about this? You take me back to Earth and I show you something that you'll find truly amusing. If you're impressed, you let me go with a gadget of my choosing from your collection. If not, I'll come along on your prank." Zaw looked at Z, both surprised by Bob's proposal but intrigued by the challenge. "That sounds fair," Z agreed, "but what could possibly be more amusing than our original plan?" Bob grinned, his confidence returning. "Oh, you'd be surprised what Earth can offer. We've got wonders you wouldn't believe." With the agreement in place, Z directed the ship back toward Earth. The journey back was quicker than Bob expected, the stars outside blurring into lines of light as the ship engaged its advanced propulsion systems. Bob used the time to prepare his hosts for what they were about to experience, describing Earth's diverse cultures, innovations, and his own quirky inventions. Upon landing discreetly near Bob's barn under the cover of night, he led Z and Zaw inside, where his latest project before the abduction sat waiting. It was a homemade rocket ship, seemingly held together with nothing more than duct tape, repurposed parts, and sheer willpower. "This," Bob declared with a flourish, "is what I wanted to show you." Z and Zaw examined the rocket skeptically, their expressions a mixture of doubt and amusement. "You intend to travel in this?" Zaw asked, clearly trying to hold back laughter. "Just watch," Bob said, climbing into the contraption with a wink. As they prepared for what Bob promised would be an earth-shattering demonstration, Z and Zaw couldn't help but wonder if their entire perception of Earth and humans was about to change. They looked at each other, a single thought shared between them. They might have just stumbled upon the most interesting human in the universe. Bob's homemade rocket was an oddity that could only have sprung from a mind as inventive and fearless as his. The contraption looked precarious at best, constructed from an eclectic mix of farm machinery parts, old car engines, and what appeared to be pieces of scrap metal welded together haphazardly. Its exterior was adorned with hand-painted flames and streaks of silver that gave it a touch of whimsy. As Z and Zaw watched, Bob made final adjustments, tightening bolts and checking gauges with the familiarity of a seasoned pilot preparing for takeoff. His enthusiasm was infectious, and despite their advanced technological background, the aliens found themselves caught up in the excitement of this primitive yet daring display. "All right, brace yourselves," Bob announced, donning an old beat-up motorcycle helmet he'd picked up on his way back into the barn. "She might not look like much, but she's got it where it counts." With a dramatic countdown, Bob activated the ignition. The engine sputtered to life with a roar, shaking the barn around them as if it might collapse at any moment. Plumes of smoke filled the air, and the rocket vibrated intensely, causing various tools and spare parts in the barn to rattle ominously. Z and Zaw exchanged nervous glances, their earlier amusement turning to concern. Was this human really going to launch himself into the sky in this contraption? They prepared to intervene if necessary, their advanced sensors and reflexes on high alert. However, before the situation could escalate further, there was a loud pop and a hiss. The rocket's engine abruptly cut out, and the barn fell silent except for the sound of settling dust and Bob's hearty laughter from within the cockpit. Stepping out, Bob removed his helmet and wiped soot from his face. "Well, that was a bit anticlimactic," he admitted with a sheepish grin. "She usually performs better than this. Must be shy with new company." Z and Zaw, relieved but also amused, couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. The laughter broke any remaining tension, and even Bob joined in, proud not of the rocket's performance but of his ability to entertain his guests. Seeing an opportunity, Bob quickly shifted gears. "While the rocket may not have flown, I've got plenty more to show you. Let's not stick to just one invention. How about a tour of earthly creativity?" Intrigued by Bob's resilience and charm, Z and Zaw agreed. The trio spent the rest of the evening exploring various other inventions Bob had created, each more peculiar and inventive than the last. From a bicycle that could float on water to a series of complex pulley systems designed to automate his farm chores, Bob showcased his knack for solving problems with whatever materials were at hand. As the night progressed, Z and Zaw began to see Earth technology not just as primitive, but as a fascinating example of innovation under constraints. They were particularly impressed by how Bob used common materials to achieve uncommon results, a stark contrast to their own reliance on advanced alloys and quantum computing. "Your ingenuity and ability to make the most of limited resources are truly remarkable," Z commented, a newfound respect evident in their tone. "It's clear we have much to learn about human creativity." Bob, pleased by their acknowledgement, felt a mix of pride and satisfaction. He had turned what could have been a disastrous demonstration into an opportunity to bridge two vastly different worlds through the universal language of invention. As the night drew to a close, Z and Zaw made a decision. Not only would they honor their agreement by letting Bob choose a gadget from their collection, but they would also extend an offer for further exchange of knowledge and ideas, hoping to explore more of what human ingenuity could offer. Bob, for his part, was already eyeing the possibilities, both for new inventions and perhaps someday another crack at a successful rocket launch. Bob's initial demonstration might not have gone as planned, but it had successfully piqued the aliens' curiosity about earthly inventions. Energized by their genuine interest, Bob decided to try another demonstration, this time focusing on something he was confident would not fail to impress: his self-designed agricultural drone. As dawn approached, casting a soft light over the farm, Bob led Z and Zaw outside to a wide open field adjacent to his barn. The drone, a cleverly assembled contraption featuring lightweight materials and an intuitive control system, was something Bob had used successfully to monitor crop health and distribute fertilizers efficiently over his fields. "This little guy here is one of my proudest creations," Bob explained as he lifted the drone. It had a rustic look, patched together from parts of old electronics and farm tools, but equipped with modern sensors he had bartered from town tech enthusiasts. Z and Zaw examined the drone closely, intrigued by the hybrid of Earth technology and improvisation. Bob placed the drone gently on the ground and pulled out a homemade control tablet. "Watch this," Bob said, his face lit with excitement. He tapped the screen and the drone buzzed to life, its rotor spinning as it lifted smoothly off the ground. However, just as Bob was about to demonstrate its full capabilities, a curious cow, attracted by the noise and unusual activity, meandered into the field. The cow, a hefty creature fondly named Bessie, ambled directly under the hovering drone. Z and Zaw watched in bemusement as Bob tried to maneuver the drone away, but it was too late. Bessie, perhaps startled or merely inquisitive, gave a mighty moo and swatted the drone with her head. The drone spiraled out of control, crashing into a nearby haystack, sending straw flying into the air. Bob rushed to the crash site, his face a mix of frustration and amusement. Pulling the drone from the haystack, he inspected it for damage. Remarkably, it was mostly intact, a testament to its sturdy design. "I guess that's another test for its durability," Bob joked, brushing straw off the drone. Z and Zaw joined him, their laughter mingling with the early morning sounds of the farm. "We've never seen anything quite like this," Zaw admitted, still chuckling. "Your ability to adapt and improvise is indeed impressive." Bob, pleased with their reaction despite the mishap, replied, "Well, that's life on the farm. You make do with what you have, and sometimes you have to deal with curious cows." The incident with Bessie turned into a larger discussion about Earth's biodiversity and the various challenges humans faced in managing it. Bob shared stories of his farming experiences, weaving in tales of innovation and mishap alike. Moved by his resilience and ingenuity, Z and Zaw expressed a desire to learn more about human technology and its applications in daily life. They proposed to Bob a cultural exchange of knowledge. They would share insights from their advanced technologies, while Bob would introduce them to creative Earth solutions that had stood the test of time and resource constraints. Bob agreed enthusiastically, excited at the prospect of learning alien technologies that could perhaps improve his own inventions, even dreaming of fixing his rocket with some alien tech. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light over the field, it was clear that what had started as an accidental abduction was blossoming into a promising partnership, blending the best of two worlds in the spirit of discovery and mutual respect. The spirit of collaboration that had begun to flourish between Bob and his alien guests took a more structured form as they agreed to a friendly challenge, a showcase of skills and technology. Bob would attempt to fix a malfunctioning piece of alien equipment using his earthly know-how, and in exchange, Z and Zaw would assist Bob in enhancing one of his farm inventions with their advanced technology. Bob was led back into the spacecraft to the engineering bay, a room that hummed with the quiet energy of myriad devices, each more intricate than the last. Here Z presented Bob with the challenge, a compact alien gadget that was responsible for regulating the ship's atmosphere. Recently it had begun to falter, a minor inconvenience that the aliens had not yet addressed. "This device ensures that our ship's internal environment remains conducive to our physiological needs," Zaw explained, handing the seemingly simple yet undoubtedly complex device to Bob. Bob turned the gadget over in his hands, his eyes alight with curiosity. "What seems to be the trouble with it?" he asked. "It's been unable to maintain the desired humidity levels, fluctuating more than what is acceptable for our comfort," Z replied. With a nod, Bob set up a makeshift workstation in the barn, surrounded by his tools and several curious chickens pecking around his feet. Z and Zaw watched, fascinated by Bob's methodical approach to disassembling the device, using a mix of his standard Earth tools and a few alien implements they had provided. As Bob worked, he talked through his process, explaining his thoughts and theories. "Based on what I can see, your humidity control relies on a form of condensation cycling. It's not too different from how we cool air on Earth, just a lot more advanced in terms of materials and efficiency." Bob identified a small crystalline component that had become discolored, likely from overheating or chemical exposure. "I think this part here is your problem. It looks like it's been compromised. On Earth, we'd replace this with a similar component, or sometimes clean it if it's just a buildup causing issues." Using a homemade cleaning solution and a precise set of micro-tools, Bob carefully cleaned the component under the watchful eyes of Z and Zaw. Once reassembled, they returned to the ship to test the device. The moment Bob reinstalled it and activated the system, the atmosphere regulators hummed back to life, the previous fluctuations in humidity levels stabilizing. Z and Zaw were impressed. "Your ability to understand and repair technology you've never seen before is remarkable," Z complimented, a tone of genuine respect in their voice. "It's all about understanding the principles behind how things work, whether they're from Earth or Zorblat," Bob responded with a modest shrug. With the device fixed, it was now Z and Zaw's turn to fulfill their part of the challenge. They accompanied Bob to his workshop, where he showed them his latest project, an automated feeder for his livestock, which was functional but rudimentary. "We can help you enhance this with some minor adjustments using our technology," Zaw suggested, pulling out a small, sleek device from a pouch. The device they added was a compact efficiency enhancer, capable of optimizing the feeder's output while using less energy. With a few adjustments and some guidance from Z and Zaw on how to integrate their technology with his, Bob watched in amazement as his simple feeder transformed into a more effective and efficient machine. The exchange of knowledge and technology not only solved immediate problems but also laid the groundwork for a deeper understanding and appreciation between the human and his extraterrestrial friends. As they wrapped up their day of collaborative tinkering, both parties felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation for what other innovations they could explore together. The successful exchange of ideas and technology left both Bob and his alien friends, Z and Zaw, deeply impressed with each other's capabilities and eager to delve deeper into their respective technological realms. Motivated by this mutual respect, they decided to continue their partnership, focusing on larger projects that combined the best of earthly ingenuity and alien technology. Their next endeavor centered on improving water conservation techniques for Bob's farm, a critical issue given the recent droughts that had plagued his area. Z and Zaw proposed integrating a system that could efficiently collect atmospheric moisture and convert it into water, using minimal energy, a technique they described as common in their world but revolutionary on Earth. Bob was fascinated by the concept and eagerly set about designing a prototype with Z and Zaw's guidance. They used a combination of alien technology for the moisture collection and Earth materials for the construction, creating a hybrid system uniquely suited to Earth's environment. As they worked, Bob learned more about alien scientific principles, which often challenged his understanding of physics and chemistry. Z and Zaw, in turn, were intrigued by Bob's creative problem-solving skills, which often led to unconventional but effective solutions. After several days of intense collaboration, the trio completed the prototype. It was a sleek, compact device that could be easily replicated with local materials for wider distribution. Excited to see it in action, they installed the system on Bob's farm. The initial test exceeded all their expectations. The device not only collected enough water to sustain Bob's crops, but it did so with an efficiency that was unheard of with existing Earth technology. Bob was overjoyed, envisioning the potential benefits not just for his own farm, but for agricultural practices worldwide. "This could change everything for drought-stricken regions," Bob exclaimed, his mind racing with the possibilities. Z nodded, their eyes bright with excitement. "And it's a perfect example of what can be achieved when different worlds collaborate." The success of their project prompted Bob to think bigger. With Z and Zaw's continued partnership, he began to plan an open demonstration for the local community and eventually for broader audiences. He wanted to show that alien contact, often feared and misunderstood, could bring positive changes and foster new opportunities for growth and innovation. Meanwhile, Z and Zaw communicated their findings back to their home planet, highlighting the potential for peaceful and productive interstellar relations. Their reports generated interest among their own scientific community, opening up possibilities for further exchanges and visits to Earth. The day of the demonstration arrived, and local farmers, academics, and media gathered at Bob's farm, curious about the revolutionary water system touted in the invitations. Bob, supported by Z and Zaw, who remained discreetly in the background, unveiled the device. He explained its workings, demonstrated its effectiveness, and shared his vision for its application on a global scale. The demonstration was a resounding success. The audience was amazed not only by the technology itself, but also by the story of how it came to be. Bob fielded questions, spoke of his adventures with Z and Zaw, and emphasized the importance of open-mindedness and innovation. As the crowd dispersed, many lingered to talk more with Bob, ask questions about the technology, and express their excitement about the future. Bob felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for the success of the event, but for bridging the gap between his world and the cosmos. Z and Zaw, watching from afar, felt a surge of pride and optimism. They had come to Earth on a whim, seeking amusement, but they left with a sense of purpose, hopeful for the future collaborations between their people and humanity. As they prepared to report back to their leaders, they knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in interstellar relations, a chapter in which Earth and Zorblat could thrive together in mutual respect and curiosity. Following the success of their water conservation project, Bob, Z, and Zaw were propelled into a whirlwind of planning and presentations. Their technology quickly caught the attention of international environmental groups and governments, eager to implement these advanced systems to combat the growing global water scarcity. Inspired by this global interest, Z and Zaw decided to officially introduce their people, the Zorblatians, to Earth. With Bob as their Earth liaison, preparations began for a formal meeting that would establish the first official contact between humans and Zorblatians. This event was designed not only to introduce the technology, but also to lay the groundwork for a lasting partnership between the two civilizations. Bob was both excited and nervous about the responsibility he now carried. He worked closely with Z and Zaw to understand the cultural nuances of the Zorblatians to ensure that the meeting would proceed without misunderstandings. At the same time, Bob educated them about human customs and international diplomacy. The chosen venue for the event was an international conference center equipped with the latest technology to facilitate communication and media coverage. Security was tight, given the historic and sensitive nature of the event. Leaders, scientists, and diplomats from around the world gathered, buzzing with anticipation and curiosity about their new cosmic neighbors. As the day of the conference arrived, Bob felt a mix of pride and awe. He watched as Z and Zaw, along with a delegation of Zorblatians, made their first public appearance. The Zorblatians' graceful demeanor and their shimmering, translucent skin, which reflected the light in mesmerizing patterns, captivated everyone. Z took the stage first, addressing the assembly with a speech that was both eloquent and moving, transmitted directly into the minds of the attendees through a telepathic device that translated their thoughts into understandable language. They spoke of their planet, their culture, and their philosophy of exploring and enriching the universe through knowledge and cooperation. "We come to you not as conquerors or superior beings, but as fellow travelers of the stars seeking mutual understanding and the sharing of resources," Z declared, their voice calm and resonant. Bob followed with his own speech, detailing his unexpected journey from farmer and inventor to interstellar diplomat. He shared his experiences aboard the Zorblatian ship, the technology exchange, and the profound lessons about trust and innovation. "Their technology has the potential to solve some of our most pressing challenges," Bob explained. "But beyond technology, this is a chance to expand our horizons, to learn from each other, and to realize that in the vastness of the cosmos, we are not alone." The speeches were met with applause and a sense of wonder. Discussions flowed, questions were asked and answered, and plans were made for future exchanges and collaborative projects. As the conference wrapped up, Bob stood with Z and Zaw, looking out over the crowd of newly formed alliances and friendships. The trio shared a quiet moment of reflection, understanding the gravity of what they had started. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Bob asked, more to himself than to his friends. "It is," Zaw confirmed, "a beginning of a new era for both our peoples." The day ended with a feeling of hopeful anticipation. The world had not only gained new allies, but had stepped into a larger, more mysterious universe than they had ever imagined. As Bob returned to his farm that evening, the stars seemed brighter, the universe a little less mysterious and a lot more inviting. He knew his life had changed forever, and he was ready to embrace whatever came next with the same ingenuity and openness that had brought him this far. In the aftermath of the historic conference, the world buzzed with the promise of new beginnings and the dawn of a cooperative future between Earth and Zorblat. Bob, once a simple farmer and now a pioneering diplomat, found himself at the heart of this burgeoning alliance, mediating interactions and facilitating the integration of alien technology into Earth's infrastructures. As the liaison between Earth and Zorblat, Bob's life took on a rhythm governed by interstellar communication and terrestrial innovation. He divided his time between his farm, where he continued to test and refine the hybrid technologies, and various global forums where he advocated for responsible and equitable use of alien advancements. Under his guidance, several pilot projects were launched around the world. These projects ranged from agricultural enhancements that significantly increased crop yields without harming the environment, to water purification systems that could bring clean water to the most arid regions of the planet. Each success was a testament to the potential of human and alien collaboration, and Bob's role was pivotal in ensuring that these technologies were used wisely and widely. Meanwhile, Z and Zaw became regular visitors to Earth, sometimes bringing other Zorblatians with them to learn about human culture and help oversee the implementation of their technologies. Their presence helped to demystify the concept of alien life for the general public, turning fear and suspicion into friendship and admiration. As part of their ongoing exchange, Bob visited Zorblat several times, each visit deepening his understanding of his new friends and their way of life. These visits were also opportunities for Bob to share more of his own inventions and ideas, which were received with great interest and respect by the Zorblatians. His ability to innovate within the limits of Earth's primitive materials fascinated them, offering them new perspectives on their own technologies. One day, during a particularly reflective visit to Zorblat, Bob stood beside Z, watching a sunset that painted the alien sky with colors no human had ever seen before. He thought about his journey from his small farm to these moments of cosmic significance. "Did you ever imagine we'd come this far?" Bob asked, his voice a mix of wonder and nostalgia. "I hoped," Z replied simply, "but hope is the beginning of reality in our culture." Back on Earth, the collaboration had ignited a global renaissance of science and technology, inspiring a new generation to look up at the stars with dreams and schemes. Universities and research centers experienced a surge in applications, with students eager to study extraterrestrial technologies and the new sciences that emerged from the human-Zorblat partnership. As Bob prepared for the inauguration of the first Earth-Zorblat research facility, he reflected on the profound changes in his life and the world around him. This facility would be a hub of innovation and cooperation, symbolizing the permanent bridge between Earth and Zorblat. During the inauguration, Bob gave a speech that resonated with hope and ambition. "Today we stand on the threshold of a new era, not just for our planet, but for all sentient beings in the universe. Let this facility be a beacon of our shared commitment to progress, peace, and prosperity." As applause echoed in the background, Bob felt a profound connection to everyone present, bound together by a shared vision for the future. The universe no longer seemed like a vast, empty space, but a neighborhood brimming with possibilities and new friends. And as the stars twinkled overhead, Bob knew that this was just the beginning. Earth was no longer isolated. It was a key player in the cosmic community, ready to face whatever challenges and wonders lay ahead, together with their new allies from Zorblat.